My boss treated me like an idiot for years, so I made sure his career crumbled before I left. I worked for the same company for over 30 years, showed up early, stayed late, trained new hires, and made sure things ran smoothly. Then my boss, Ryan, came in. Ryan was younger, arrogant, and full of corporate buzzwords. He thought experience didn't matter, that the old ways were useless, and that he was smarter than everyone, especially me. For years, he talked down to me, dismissed my input, and treated me like I was replaceable. So, when I finally decided to retire early, I didn't just walk away. I made sure that when I left, his entire career would go up in flames. And by the time he realized what I had done, it was too late. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. I had been with the company for over 30 years. I wasn't just an employee, I was the backbone of the place. I knew every system, every process, every trick that kept things running. Whenever a crisis happened, people came to me. Then came Ryan. Ryan was in his mid-30s, fresh out of some overpriced MBA program, and thought he was God's gift to management. From day one, he made it clear. He didn't respect experience. "We need fresh ideas," he'd say in meetings, glancing at me like I was ancient history. "We're moving in a new direction, and I need people who can keep up with modern business practices." That was his way of saying, "I don't think you're valuable anymore." I took it on the chin at first. I figured he was just another cocky manager who would eventually learn to respect the people who actually kept the company alive. I was wrong, because Ryan wasn't just arrogant, he was an idiot. And when he finally crossed the line, that's when I decided I wasn't just going to retire. I was going to make sure that when I walked out, Ryan's entire career would burn with me. Ryan didn't just ignore my experience, he actively undermined me every chance he got. He'd ask for my input in meetings, only to cut me off halfway through and say, "Actually, I think we'll go in a different direction." He'd take credit for ideas I suggested months ago and act like they were his own. And worst of all, he started replacing older employees with younger, cheaper hires, people who didn't know a damn thing about how the company really worked. One day, I walked into the break room and overheard him talking to one of the new guys. "Jim's been here forever, huh?" Ryan chuckled. "I mean, he's good at what he does, but let's be real, he's kinda outdated." I clenched my jaw. Outdated? I had built this company from the ground up, and now this corporate clown thought he could just phase me out like I was some old piece of equipment? Fine. If Ryan wanted to see what this company looked like without me, he was about to find out, and it wasn't going to be pretty. The day Ryan called me outdated was the day I decided I wasn't just going to retire quietly. I was going to leave on my terms, and when I walked out that door, Ryan was going to feel it. I started planning right away. Not out of revenge, not at first. I just wanted to make sure that when I left, I wasn't screwing over the coworkers I actually liked. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Ryan thought I was replaceable. He thought the company could function without me. But what he didn't understand was that I wasn't just an employee. I was the glue. I knew every process, every loophole, every problem before it even happened. And without me, this place was going to fall apart faster than he could imagine. So I started laying the groundwork. First, I began slowly pulling back. Instead of fixing problems before they became disasters, I started letting them pile up. A critical vendor needed new contracts signed. Normally, I'd handle it before they even had to ask. This time, I let it sit on Ryan's desk for weeks. Payroll needed adjustments. Normally, I'd make sure the numbers were airtight. But now, I let Ryan's new hires figure it out. And surprise, surprise, they messed it up. People started getting underpaid, overpaid, or flat out missing checks. And who did they come running to? Mister. But this time, I shrugged and said, "Sorry, that's not my department anymore." And Ryan, he was clueless. He had spent so much time trying to push me out. He never actually learned how to do my job. And now, he was about to drown in his own incompetence. As the weeks went by, I watched Ryan's golden boy confidence crumble bit by bit. At first, he acted like everything was under control. But then, the cracks started to show. Deadlines were missed, vendors started complaining, and his brand new hires, they had no idea how to fix anything. The best part, Ryan couldn't even admit he was struggling. Instead, he tried to blame everyone else. People aren't adapting to the new structure fast enough, he whined in a meeting. No, Ryan. You're just too damn stupid to realize you don't know how to run a company. And then he made his biggest mistake. One day he called me into his office. Jim, he sighed, rubbing his temples like he was the one under stress. I know we've had our differences, but I really need you to step up right now. I raised an eyebrow. Step up? He nodded. Things have been rocky. The team's still adjusting. I need you to help train the new guys a little more, just until they're fully settled. I leaned back in my chair, smirking. Let me get this straight, I said. You spent months treating me like I was useless, and now that things are falling apart, you want me to fix it for you? Ryan shifted in his chair. Come on, Jim. This isn't about ego. It's about the company. I chuckled. No, Ryan. It's about you screwing up and needing me to clean up the mess. His face twitched in frustration. I just need a little help, that's all. I nodded. I get that. Then I stood up. But that's not my problem anymore. And I walked out of his office, grinning ear to ear. Because now he was really on his own. And he was about to crash and burn. After that conversation, I stopped giving a damn. I didn't just pull back, I checked out completely. Before, I had at least been letting things slide just enough to create problems. But now, I wasn't lifting a finger. Emails, ignored, meetings, silent. People came to me with issues and I just shrugged. Talk to Ryan, I'd say, forcing them to deal with his incompetence. And Ryan, he was losing his mind. At first he tried to pretend everything was fine, but soon, the meltdowns started. One day, I walked past the conference room and heard him snapping at his team. Why the hell wasn't this handled? Who was supposed to take care of this? I smirked, because I knew exactly what happened. That was my old job, the same job he never bothered to learn, the same job he thought was replaceable. And now, it was too late. The real disaster came when one of our biggest clients, a multi-million-dollar contract, threatened to pull out. The client had been getting increasingly frustrated with missed deadlines, sloppy work, and delays. They had stuck with us for years, but now they were fed up. And the worst part? Ryan had no idea how to fix it. Because the guy who held that relationship together for years, Mr., and I was about to watch everything fall apart. That afternoon, Ryan barged into my office, his face red with panic. Jim, he gasped, we have a serious problem. I looked up, acting completely uninterested. Oh? He threw his hands in the air. Our biggest client is threatening to leave. They're pissed about the delays, and they're demanding answers. I nodded. Sounds rough. He blinked, waiting for me to offer help. I didn't. Instead, I leaned back and said, maybe you should schedule one of those modern efficiency meetings you love so much. His eye twitched. Jim, be serious. I smirked. I am. He let out a frustrated breath. Look, you've worked with them for years. You have a relationship with their executives. Just help me fix this and we can move forward. I tilted my head. You mean help you fix this? His jaw clenched. Yes, just this once. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and smiled. Yeah, Ryan, I said. That's going to be a no. And I walked right past him, leaving him to deal with the fire he started. Walking out of Ryan's office that day was one of the best moments of my career. For years, I had carried this company on my back, while guys like him took the credit. Now, I was letting him experience what it was like to fail on his own. And fail he did. Spectacularly. The client wasn't bluffing. When Ryan couldn't give them a solid plan to fix the issues, they pulled the entire contract. Millions of dollars. Gone. That same afternoon, I got a text from an old coworker. Dude, Ryan just got called into a private meeting with the execs. He looks like he's gonna pass out. I chuckled. He should. Because losing that contract, that wasn't just a mistake. That was career-ending. A few days later, Ryan tried one last desperate move. I was sitting at my desk, wrapping up some loose ends before I officially retired, when he walked in. He looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, stress lines on his forehead. Jim, he said, forcing a smile. Listen, I know we've had our differences, but I really think we should talk before you go. I leaned back amused. Oh? And what would we talk about? He sighed, rubbing his temples. You've been with this company for decades. You know how things work better than anyone. I smirked. Correct. He cleared his throat. Well, I was thinking maybe you could stay on as a consultant. You know, just part-time. Help guide things while we transition into this new structure. I almost laughed out loud. This guy had spent months treating me like I was nothing. Now that his career was crumbling, now he wanted my help? I stood up, grabbed my retirement papers, and smiled. Ryan, I said, looking him dead in the eyes, I'd rather set myself on fire. His face fell. You'll regret this, he muttered. I grinned. No, Ryan, you will. And then I walked out of his office for the last time. Walking out of Ryan's office felt better than I ever imagined. For the first time in decades, I felt free. No more fixing other people's mistakes. No more late nights cleaning up messes I didn't make. No more watching idiots like Ryan take credit for my hard work. Now, I was done. And Ryan, he was about to learn just how screwed he really was. A week after I left, the company fell into chaos. Without me there to keep things running, every system I had managed for years started to break down. Contracts weren't getting renewed. Deadlines were being missed. Clients were furious. And Ryan? He had no idea how to fix it. I was enjoying my first week of retirement when I got a call from an old coworker. Dude, he said, laughing, you are missing the best show of all time. I smirked. Ryan finally drowning? Oh, it's worse than that, he said. The execs just called in an outside consultant to evaluate everything. Word is, they're blaming Ryan for the client losses. I leaned back, sipping my coffee. Good, he deserves it. My coworker chuckled. Man, if you were still here, you'd be running the place by now. I shook my head. I don't need to run the place, I said, smirking. I just needed Ryan to crash and burn. Then, 2 weeks later, I got the final update. Another text from my old coworker. Coworker. Ryan just got fired. They booted him this morning. Whole thing was brutal. I stared at the message for a moment. Then I started laughing. Ryan had spent months acting like he was untouchable, like he was smarter than everyone, and now he was jobless, because without me, he had nothing. I put my phone down, stretched out in my chair, and let out a satisfied sigh. For the first time in years, I didn't have to deal with some incompetent boss ruining my day. I was retired, free, happy, and Ryan, he was probably rewriting his entire resume, trying to explain why he got fired for running a company into the ground. I smirked. He should have respected his older employees. Maybe then, he'd still have a job. A month after Ryan got fired, I got a surprise email. It was from one of the executives, exec. Hey Jim, hope you're enjoying retirement. I won't beat around the bush, we're in a rough spot. A lot of things fell apart after you left. We're hoping you'd consider coming back as a consultant. Name your price. I sat back in my chair and laughed. The same company that let Ryan treat me like garbage was now begging for my help. I thought about it for a second. Then, I replied, me. Thanks, but I'm finally enjoying my life. Good luck fixing what Ryan broke. And I left it at that. Because the truth was, I didn't need them. I had my retirement, my freedom, my peace. And Ryan, last I heard, he was struggling to find work. Turns out, getting fired for destroying a company doesn't look great on a resume. Maybe he should have respected his experienced employees when he had the chance. But now, he was just another failed manager who got exactly what he deserved. Some bosses think they're too smart to fail. Ryan thought he could push me out, replace experience with modern ideas, and still keep the company running. But the truth, experience matters. And when he finally realized that, it was too late. Ever had a boss who underestimated you, only to regret it later? Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them.